What if you could ask your production systems why it's failing in plain English without sending a single log or metric to the cloud? In this video, I'll show you how to build your own local AI incident investigator using Docker containers, MCP servers, open source LLMs, all running on your local machine. Observability tools shows you dashboards. But during an incident, we don't want charts, but we want answers. Cloud AI tools can be really powerful, but some teams can't use them due to data sensitivity, cost, or compliance. So today we'll build something different. AI observability tool that runs entirely locally. Use case: AI-powered local incident triage for production observability. This video would be really useful for platform engineers, SREs, backend engineers running Kubernetes or Dockerized workloads, teams who can't send prod telemetry to cloud LLMs. So here's the setup that we'll be using today. We'll have an Ollama local instance running. We'll have a Docker container running for checkout application, Prometheus, MCP server. We'll expose the logs from the application via MCP server. The LLM will query real data to give us insights. Let's start by writing our checkout application. Here, it's a Flask application. I've defined an endpoint for a checkout, and intentionally I'm adding a bug, basically slowing down randomly when traffic is generated. So now let's build our MCP server. It'll be a Flask application. We'll define an endpoint for Prometheus from where the MCP server will query from. Let's set up the Prometheus config file, which we will load into the Prometheus container. In this project, we'll be using Ollama. I already have a local instance of Ollama running, but you could download it from the link I'll provide in the description. Now that we have defined all the servers, the MCP, the checkout application, define the Prometheus configuration, it's a good time to get started with our Docker Compose file. In the Docker Compose file, we'll be defining all our 3 services, which will spin up as containers. One would be for the checkout application, one for our Prometheus, and one would be our MCP server itself. Time for some action. Let's start the containers by running the docker compose up command. It should spin up anytime. Now, once we have all our containers in the started and success status, let's give some time and generate some traffic on our checkout application. We'll be using the command watch, as this watch could be really useful if you want to execute any command at a certain frequency. I'll set it up to 5 seconds so that we have continuous traffic, and then we can go into our Prometheus endpoint and see if we are seeing any traffic spikes. Okay, I'm on my Prometheus port, and I do see that there is some spikes, and it is getting generated as we speak. Okay, so what now? Now that we have our Prometheus set up, and we can see that there is some spike, and now we want to figure out how we can use our Ollama instance, which we just downloaded and installed, to read from these metrics and give us some insights. So let's build a small script, which will basically be used to query the LLM, which will check with the MCP server, which will query Prometheus and give us some response. Let's see. Here's a simple script which can be used to query the LLM. I'll give it a prompt to check for the latency and why it's spiking in production. Now, as simple as it gets, we'll just execute this script and let's see what it gives us. So we got some results. Looking at it, it is giving a summary of what it found. It is interpreting the metrics and it's also giving suggestions for the next steps on what to examine, what to review. So why this matters? This isn't observability dashboards. This is AI-assisted incident triage. The model doesn't hallucinate. It queries production telemetry. And nothing leaves your machine. This is also powerful, and it's important to emphasize that there are no embeddings pipeline, there's no vendor lock-in, no data exfiltration, works with existing observability stacks. So this isn't replacing the observability tools in itself. It's augmenting engineers during incidents. If you're a platform engineer, this is a weekend project with real return on investment. Next, you could add Slack integration, connect to your Kubernetes events, or run this as an internal incident copilot. If you want a follow-up where we can add Kubernetes and real Prometheus queries, comment part 2. And if you're building internal developer platforms, this pattern is worth stealing.